Welcome back. Today we're going to do a new fly that most of you have not seen, a few of you might have, but it's kind of exciting because it's a new hook style. It's a variation of the old Keel hook. I've been working with Montana Fly on this hook for a couple years now. It's basically, it's like the Keel. If those of you remember my stacked blonde, that was always tied, all that blonde series were done on Keels. And it's a slight variation. It's a little bit longer shank in the head. It's got a ring eye that's flat instead of down eye or up eye, like this is the old style, and which is still a down eye. And so it's a really cool deal because it's a really fast fly, but it's the number of things you can do with it that makes it so fun. The style of head, which is, you know, I started doing this style of head was one I came up with back in the 80s or early 90s, where we stacked the stuff on the original TNA bunkers and all that stuff. But over the last few years, you're seeing a lot of sculpting coming in, a lot more different materials that we didn't use in the old days. And the fun thing about this fly is that you can just like go ape crazy with this thing. You can do whatever you want. I'm going to show you. I've got a whole bunch of different colors that are just, I mean, it's just adaptation to just a different feather. And so, I mean, I got green one, gray one. I've got a semi-suspender here. This one has flank on the back, and it's a little weight here, and it's got this synthetic head. Same thing with this one, except we go to the hair head, and this is a complete surface fly. I mean, it jumps up in the air. I even kick its head a little bit, and it pops up in the air. It's like a dying minnow. It's a blast. But they're super fast to tie. But as always, I'll talk too much when I do it. But you can, the beauty of it is kind of blending the sculpting that's got pretty popular now, using some synthetic, some natural. The feather is the kicker, man. This thing swims like it's got a machine in it. It's just like crazy, right? And it's the lightest fly you'll ever cast in your life. This thing will throw a full 5-inch profile, and it doesn't weigh a hell of a lot more than a woolly bugger. I mean, it's just super, super light. And I'm gonna do this, when I set up to do it, I'm going to do this with a dubbing brush, which I don't do a lot of dubbing brushes. And the early ones, like a lot of these here, this green one, I use UV polar chenille in it. You know, I dub some of them, I do it. That's the beauty of it. It's a super fast fly. It doesn't take long to tie. But the first thing we got to do is I'm going to show you how to, before we start tying it, I'm going to show you how we take this feather and where I've got this stripe down the side of it. And most of them do. All the colored ones, the olive, the tan, the gray one I do. The gray one, it's getting close to leave for Arkansas time for me. Last year that gray one on the white was really money. But I usually just tone on tone with these things. Like if it's got a green feather, or olive feather like this one, I just put a barred grizzly down it, just to give it, it's just something that makes it kind of sing. So when I do that, what I do is I'm going to use American saddles. I use these things, man. On my flatliners, my bang tails, and everything else. I love these things. They're inexpensive. You get a ton of feathers out of these things. They're always perfect. And I just want to show you, because I'm going to do this accent, but if you're into the badger, and you can do the same thing. You get an almost identical effect with using a badger hackle because it's already got the black stripe down it. It just gives you a really cool effect when you see it, especially on the tan ones. You use a badger dyed, a tan badger. It's really cool. I'm not going to do that yet. I'll probably hook myself. Matter of fact, I'm going to take that right out of there. I'm going to show you what I do here. So the reason I like these saddles is that you get matched sets of feathers. I mean, it's just like instantly. You reach in here, you dig around, you find the ones you like, and you've got a set. They're matched up right there. You can go on each side if you want. I'm going to come in here. I think I got two there. Pull a couple of them out, and I'm done. And I've got this set of feathers, which I'm just going to offset. You can pull them out, and you can always set them aside if they didn't match up. If you don't have exactly what you want, save these because they're always pretty close. But if you don't have it, you'll the other one's in there. The match set's in there somewhere. So just hold these back. This isn't a material that I would waste. And so basically there's no way to tell you this other than if you had your hook. Where'd my hook go? So if I had my hook here, and you just say, okay, I want the fly to be that long, just kind of match it up and say, okay, that's how far I want to do it. But what I want to show you is how I'm going to set this wing, because it's kind of cool. I did a seminar over at East Rosebud last week, and we were talking about, I got talking with the guys that works there about my favorite flies, which would be my favorite fly to tie. And one of them for sure would be a Carrie Stevens full dress gray ghost. And if you go back and study, you'll see that Carrie Stevens used to layer her feathers. She'd use, I'm not sure what kind of glue she used, to tell you the truth, but she would do, like with her mallard flank, would have glue on it. And what she was trying to do is stiffen the front third of her fly. And so she even, I mean, this is back in the 30s and 40s, you know, she's doing flies that she knew that she wanted the tail to swim, but not the whole feather. It's pretty cool. I mean, it's really insightful when you get right down to it, be that far ahead of time that you're thinking about that. But what we're going to do is we're just going to put this, we're going to put this accent on here. This fly, and every one of these flies except for that one with the hair on it, have been fished a lot, right? And this fly right here has got this flank down, or this grizzly hackle down it. That fly is still attached. It's been fished, I bet you, a dozen times, and there's nothing has changed. And so it's just, it's kind of a fun thing. Like, you know, I'm always bringing up this, people ask me about speed tying. This is one thing you would do, you know, you could do in advance if you knew you're going to do quite a few of them. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the top end of a grizzly, don't care what it is. And like I said, if you're doing a gray one, use regular grizzly. If you're using, you can match these any way you want. I mean, and just find it. And you're going to use a little bit. You're not going to use really the hackle anymore that you'd be using. You know, this is going to be a little bit bigger, but if you, it's completely up to you. Do you want a broad stripe on this? Do you want a medium stripe? That's completely up to you. Just get a match set. I'm going to take kind of a big one just so it gives a little bit more, you know, so you can see it a little bit better on the camera. I'm just looking for, I've been digging through this one for quite a while, so I'm fighting to get a good set of them here that both match up. Come here, you. You two. There's a dog barking in here again. See? That didn't work. All right, so now I've got a set of these. I'm gonna put them in here, and I'm not gonna do this the full length. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna strip the stuff off of these, and again, I don't usually, when I put them on mine, I don't usually have them go all the way to the end. I usually leave, you know, maybe an inch or two. I don't know why. If you want it to go all the way to the end, have at it. It's just, this is like I said, you just go for it how you want to see it. I like to have about an inch on the end sticking out there. That's fine with me. And then we just lay them up beside each other and match them up so they're the same on each side. You know, I'm just guessing, but I'll bet if they weren't the same on each side, the fish wouldn't care. It's like music coming everywhere. All right, so now we've got, I cut these off, and I just grabbed this cardboard box. It's just, you got to have something to set these on, otherwise it kind of fights you. And now we're going to show you, like I told you, Carrie Stevens used some sort of acrylic or lacquer when she was doing it, varnish, who knows what they used back in the old days. I've been using this stuff for a long time, or all different types of this stuff, and it's just a latex glue is all it is. And what I do is I just take a little bitty, that's a bubble. You need like next to none of this stuff. And I don't know if you can see that on there or not, but I just put a little tiny drop. And I'm gonna take this stuff and I'm gonna put it on the bodkin, and I'm going to just run it down, just dab it just a little bit, about an inch. Try not to get it too too broad on your feather. Make sure you don't open up the fibers of the feather. And just dab it on there a little bit. You get about 2 or 3 minutes to work with this stuff. So I'm just going to do both of them at the same time. And then we're just going to set it here while we start doing all the other stuff. So just dab a little bit on there. Take your feather. Give me one of you. And if there's a curve to this feather, one way or the other, look at your feather and see if you can match them. I mean, it just looks better when you finish it off that way. It really won't matter much, but for the overall fishing. So now we're going to just put this on top, dead on top of the other one, and just kind of barely tap it. Just get it so it's sticking right on top there, and make sure it's kind of following the bend of the other feather. Set it there. And the reason you have this box here is so you can leave those stems hanging. If you try to do that on a flat table, it'll fight you a lot. So just set it there. That one I kind of, you can see if you're laying right on top of it. And just push them in there, let them set. Don't worry too much right at the base there that it's in. Perfect. Now I've got a set of feathers right here. Got a nice accent down the side, and we just set these aside. Just leave them to go. So we're going to, with this hook, and I may forget to say this as we go along, but I'm going to run about, you don't have to do this, I'm going to run about 20 turns of 025 on the belly. You do not have to do that. It's a guarantee that this thing's going to ride belly down. It's physics. It has to. That's the heaviest part of this hook. So I put 15 to 20 turns of 025 in this thing. That's just, it's again, if you don't want to do it, don't do it. It'll still swim belly down. And so I leave it up in the front when I do this, and I'm just going to do a subtle build up on each side of this. And then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to tie in my dubbing brush. I'm going to do it at the front to build. What I want to do is with this, I'm not going to use up much of this brush to do this, but it just kind of allows me, and this is an MFC sparkle dub I showed you earlier, sparkle brush. I tie that in on the top, and this way I'm just kind of building a little bit of bulk so that this doesn't dig into the lead. Then I go through and just take a second, do a little build up. In the old days, we used to build these, we used to use dental floss to just kind of go over this quick, and we could build up. We used to do that a long time ago. And so, just so that this does not dig through, when you start putting this on, you don't want to dig through the lead and kind of fall into it. And I'm not going to do it on this one, and I didn't grab the right ones that have it, but if you want to see something kind of just sidebar, you want to see something kind of cool, like a layering effect inside, and this is already a sparkle UV pearl, a lot of things going on there, but if you want to see a second really cool effect, right now tie in Flashaboo, whatever color you want. You want a little bit of yellow to go through, put in some flash, holographic Flashaboo in here, and then wrap this over it. When it gets wet, you'll see it through it. It's really cool. I do a lot of them with purple in there. Do the belly, wrap it with Flashaboo with purple, and then wrap through. Hardly can see it at all until it gets wet, and then boom, you can see it. It's right there. So take this back up to the front, right here. Now on these sparkle brushes, they're pretty thick, and so you don't need to, and when you're looking at the body on this thing, you don't need it to be really tightly. I open these up. I don't try to get them right beside each other. Open them up just a little bit, but just make sure that you're pulling this material back just like you would if it was a feather. Pull it back and keep pulling the materials to one side. Don't leave them all off on both sides. You just keep trapping them that way. And so pull it off to one side, and I'm going to open these things up, just making sure that I'm keeping the materials back, trying to stay out of the way of this right camera here because I know my shoulders always get in the way, or my hand. And I'm opening these up. I'm probably a full, I try to watch if I can see any of that underbody. I start thickening, you know, get a little tighter, but mostly I'm just going to go through, keep pulling it off to the side. And again, if you want to use UV polar chenille, that's what I did forever. If you want to dub your own, that's cool too. I mean, it's if you want to make your own dubbing brush with, you know, doing in a dubbing loop, it's all cool. It's really, most of this will get covered up anyway. That was, actually went a little heavier than I maybe would normally on that one. So, give me you. Now we're just gonna come in here and pick this thing out nice and loose, because you're gonna lose some of it when you get in there. And don't trim this yet. Don't do anything to it until you're completely, everything's assembled and you know where you want everything, because it's not easy to put this stuff back on once you cut it off. Okay, now, boom. So when this thing's wet, that's all going to lay down. We're just going to have this nice little body. At this point, you flip your hook upside down. Do not cut off all your stuff there. Okay, so now we flip the hook backside, so we got something to work with. So, I said earlier that well, I didn't say that about this, or that about that. What I was going to say earlier, and I forgot to, is that you can use a lot of different materials for this, but you can also do it for the wings. And I'm going to start this wing, and I'm going to have bucktail on it. I like bucktail as stabilizer, but if you want to use any one of the, I mean, there's a multitude. I'm going to use a bunch of these different things. I'm going to use shimmer fringe. If you want to use, I don't know what I did with it, ice wing, it's the same thing. If you want to use angel hair, if you want to, I mean, you can use a lot of crinkly. I like that ripple ice too. That stuff's, it's all the same thing, just different. Like the ripple's got a little bend to it, a little kink in it. It's a little stiffer. If you want to use that, play with it. Do whatever you want with this thing, because it's gonna, you're gonna find it. I guarantee you, in a year, there's gonna be 50 variations of this fly, because it's fun to tie, and people are gonna experiment with it and find probably better ways to do it than this one. I've been doing it the same way forever. But I always start with this bucktail. I'm going to have just a little bit of, doesn't need a ton. This is a stabilizer. It's just basically going to be sitting there to stabilize the ice wing or the shimmer fringe or minnow bat, whatever it is you're going to put in there. It's just going to help stabilize it slightly. So we tie this in. I'm going to tie it, I left just a little space here. I'm going to cut this at an angle. You cut it at a 45, shortest hairs on the bottom going to the front. I'm going to come in here, catch right on the bend, right dead on the bend there, and just work forward. Get that hair, get 4 or 5, just keep compressing it so it's nice and tight. Just trim off any excess you've got there. We're going to cover this stuff all up and just clean things up a little bit. Give me you. Come back. Okay. Make sure that's going right through. And by the way, it does do a little, it does help a little in your, if you're fishing this thing in weeds, it really makes a difference. This thing's virtually weedless. Now I'm just gonna put some colors. I'm gonna end up tying, what we're gonna end up tying is this green, version here. So I'm gonna put just some different colors that I like in it. I almost always throw some yellow in my flies. Brown trout are your target species. The other ones are just non-game species. And so brown trout dig yellow. So I always take, not always, but frequently I'll take just a hint of yellow and throw in these flies. It's usually buried. It's not something that's just flashing all the time. It's just going to be buried. So I've got just a little bit of yellow. I'm going to put this in here. I don't usually let this go much past the tail itself. This is one of the colors that if it's going to go maybe just a little bit back there, because I just like that yellow color showing through the fly. Not a lot, just a touch. So just give it a pinch. This is non-compressible, so it doesn't flare on you at all. Move back. Always keep that nice and tapered, nice and smooth. When we get done here, we're going to stack this head, so we don't want a lot of buildup on it. We just want this stuff to be nice and clean so we can get a clean head on it. Now, I'm going to take a little bit of, this is Minnowback shimmer fringe. I just take it's mostly blue. I'm actually going to put a little bit of put just a little bit of herringback in it, which is a little bit different color, just because it's olive and it's as hard as that. You grab it, you stick that in there, and all I did is just darken it slightly. Like I said, blend it, play with it, have some fun with these things. It's super fast, to tie this thing. So now I'm just giving it a little depth, right? Most of this isn't even going to be seen. It's just going to be when it's swimming along, and there's going to be a little of this kicking here and there. Most of it, though, is going to be hid by the feathers, but it makes me feel good to put it in there. So same thing, just nice tight wraps forward, work all the way to the eye. And now you'll be seeing more of the fact that this is a vertical ring eye. That's the big difference between this fly and this hook, and all the other ones. It's got a ring eye that's set up like this. And when I designed this hook, the difference between this one and the Keel hooks, I made this longer. So I have lots of room to stack a head and sculpt a nice big head up. We're going to set these wings now. They're glued together, so you can see that the wing, it's got a beautiful match. It sets in there really nicely. We're going to set this, just come in here. When you set these wings, don't reef on your hackles. That's one of the things, we see people setting feather wings, they kind of get in there and they want to get after it right away. Give yourself 2 or 3 turns just even and move forward and make the feather do what you want it to. So I'm going to set this on the side. I want it to point slightly up, just slightly. And then I'm moving forward in nice even wraps, but I'm not reefing on this thing. It's continuous. You're going to glue this thing to death afterwards. Don't worry about that. But it's that even pressure all the way forward that doesn't make it want to roll over on the hook, and you're constantly fighting those feathers. You get a half dozen turns on there, nice even. I mean, you're not going to hang off of this thing. It's just got to hold the feather. Get it in here, work it all the way to the eye, come back, take your other set that's over here, your match set, come in here, and do the same thing, but make sure that you have the same angle and that they're the same length. So just come in. That one's a little bit off there. And I'm just going to, making sure they're the same length, and I'm just going to go nice and even, nice and forward. No, I'm not twisting, I'm not reefing on that feather. It's not trying to roll away from me. It's just set there nice and smooth. So work all the way forward, clean this up. Double check your feather sets. Nothing's twisted. You're covering into the body just slightly. You're covering all the other stuff. That's what I said. You're kind of going to lose sight of all that stuff you put on, but it's still under there. You can just barely see it in here. It's that nuance that makes it really sexy anyway. So now we've got basically the entire fly is assembled. Now we're just going to go into the different heads. And again, this, like I said, I've been doing this head for 20 years, this style, and pardon me, clutter mess. And so what we're going to work with now is Senyo's. This is Greg Senyo's laser dub. I love this stuff. When I first started doing these heads, when you looked at this style of head with the TNA bunkers back in the day, I only used wool. I mean, wool, period, that's all I would use. And then Greg's stuff came out. Is that good there? And then Greg's stuff came out, and I thought the stuff was junk because I thought it was dubbing. I was trying to dub it for something I wanted, almost like a drive light dub. I'm like, man, I just can't get this stuff to work. And I don't remember who told me to sculpt with it, and wow, I'm lost without this stuff now. I think it's the greatest stuff ever. It is so sexy. Got just enough shine to it, builds just enough bulk, and you know everything, and then it layers out, and you trim it out. And man, it's cool. And so what we're going to do here, and I'm going to show you just a couple tricks, but I've got this hook left, and I've got it just set up, and so there's only the hook showing, right? There's just the shank is just the thread is showing, and that's critical when you start doing this thing. When we get to setting the eyes, it's critical that you do not over material this. You've got to have just enough. We're not trying to build bulk. We're trying to build a profile, a silhouette out of the head, but it doesn't have to be heavy. So you're not going to use much of this stuff. And so I always do the bottom first, and I take the pure white, and I usually add just a little bit of silver to the pure white. And so all I do is take this stuff, and about a third silver, and 2/3 of white. And all I do is I just kind of come in here and fold it to blend it a little bit, but then you don't need a ton of this stuff. So now I'm going to take this and I'm going to pull it, and I'm trying to get the fibers are about an inch, inch and a half long, right? And so I keep pulling it in the middle to see that I don't have really short ones. I want to end up with the same length, and so when I pull it in the middle, I know they're all the same, and I don't, because you want to tie it in, have a whole bunch of short ones that fall out. So then you're going to take this, set it there. We're going to take some olive. If you want to put a little bit of extra color in this, I mean, the heads are, just blend like I just did. You don't have to work with whatever color you've got here. Just blend them up. I frequently put a little bit of black or brown in these heads because they're a little darker. I just like, that's a pretty clean match right there. I generally want the heads just slightly darker than the body, but not a lot. Okay. I always put the bottom on first. First one's going to be pull it in the center, just like I said. Now here's the thing. We're going to come in here and we're going to break this hook into thirds. And you see I just moved forward slightly. I'm right here. This is the hook, 1/3, 2/3. I'm going to give myself 2 spots to anchor this stuff in. Got it? Got it. Okay. Now here's the trick. Just whenever you're putting materials on like this, come in and just fold it over your hook like this. And you see that little cup that's made? Can you see that, Jeremy? Mm-hmm. See that little cup right there? That's what you're anchoring with. You're not going to do it. You're going to put 1 turn of thread on this. And so you're going to take it, you're going to bend it, you're going to come up like that, and you're just going to pull it. I don't want to get my arm in the way. So you set that. You want it right there. We're going to do another one in a second because I always put a little lavender splash in this thing. We're going to put one right beside that on the side. But I can direct this thing, and the harder I pull that like this, the more tension I put on it, the smaller that radius becomes, and I pop it right into the bottom, and it's not going to, and you can see, and then I put 1 or 2 really tight turns right there, boom. I got this big thick collar sticking down, but you're not obscuring the thread. You're not going to have a big buildup here. It's barely there. Now I'm going to take the same thing, just double check that these are all the same length. Same thing, a little bit shy on that one, I think. Just going to give it a little bit more. Pull them, always double checking that. I just keep always doing this, that it's not, really short in one spot or the other. Now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to fold this over, just like that. I get my little cup, come in here, boom, right there. Dead on top. Nice and tight, right there. Make sure everything's set, and then just do it again, nice and tight. All right, now I'm going to I put this on I started this lavender splash stuff on the, what was it? The Laser Legal was the first one. And it's got, and my buddy Kurt, I mentioned Kurt the other day. Kurt's, he's an Okie. He's quite the tire. And Kurt showed me what he did on his is he put just a little bit of orange inside this, just a touch, and man, did it make it splash. It was like poof, really bright, and it was really good gill plate. So I'm going to come in here, and I just noticed something. I'm going to relax this. This is really hard stuff to work with. You notice that? I didn't like something I saw there. It's just that hard to fix something. Just like I looked at it, I didn't like the way that set. I didn't get a tight enough pull, or I let it relax, I don't know. But it was down on the other side, it was a little bit over there. Didn't like it. Boom. Okay, now we're going to take this lavender. Same thing, going to come here on the back side. If you wanted to put that in first, you could. I don't know why I always put it on second. I'm going to put it, see how I can direct that wherever I want? Boom, right there. Take another little piece. And remember, you can always trim this stuff out. It's just boom, right on the side. So now I'm going to come back, and now I'm at the front third, double checking everything. Now I'm at the front third. You can see that I can still see my hook everywhere except where that lavender is. Now I'm just going to repeat those steps. I'm going to take a little bit less white now. And again, if you want to use pure white, that's, like on that, whatever I did with that white one, that one's all pure white. It doesn't matter. It's whatever you like. I'm going to come back to the 1/3, fold it over my thread, come in right there, nice and tight, hold it, tighten it down, a little bit more olive. When we started doing these with wool, man, the most common mistake you'd see was there's just way too much wool. All right, see, I'm going to bend that over so it's just right there. Boom, tight. Finish it off. There. We're going to glue this pretty tight here in a second. So, now I'm going to come in here and make sure I can still see my thread. I cover it up with that lavender. You can't see it as much now. I'm going to try to get it so you can see. But you can still see there's a thread body here. Underneath here you can see the threads there. I just covered it with that lavender. And frankly, this one, if anything, I've got a little bit too much on there. Actually, I think I've got just slightly too much in this, material-wise. Doesn't matter. I can get it all out of there. But we're going to do that after we do the rest of it. So, now we're going to come in here. I'm going to use these 8mm gator eyes. I seldom go smaller than an 8mm eye on this fly. And I frequently, that's a 10mm eye there. I've put 12mm eyes on them. Certain shad have really big eyes. And I have pretty much, and here, I went on that UV train for a while. I don't dig it. I think it's a lot more work than it's worth. You could use, I see Bramer uses Terramender for his wings on this thing, or his eyes on a lot of his stuff. A lot of guys do. I'm still I'm back on the Zap-A-Gap world. I tried the other stuff. It was more effort than it was worth to me. And I tended to get a little bit of bulk. That doesn't mean it's bad. If you want to do UV here, hallelujah. For me, I like the Zap. So, here's a couple keys to this stuff. Sometimes you'll find these eyes, the adhesive will stop you from getting the eye to set. I usually just rub them on my pants and I stick them on my hand. And just a quick tip, when you stick these on your hand, if you're going to set a pupil, right? I put them on the side of my hand here. Personally, I wish they didn't have that damn adhesive on them at all, because it does, on occasion, it does stop them from setting. But the good news is that it does make them easy to work with. I usually just stick them on my pan. I just try to get that. If you want to rub them with alcohol or whatever acetone you can to clean them all up, do it in advance. But if you set these things on your hand with your pupils going forward, when you grab these to set them, you won't fight it. And so I've got both pupils going to the right. So when I pull these off, I set them in there. I'm not like, oh crap, his eye's upset. Again, does it matter? Yeah, it matters that it looks right. Doesn't matter how it fishes, but it matters how it looks right. So now I'm going to make sure I've got a nice, clean base here. And I'm going to go in here, because these are 8mm eyes, I'm going to put exactly 6mm of glue on here, right? Well, no, but I'm going to try. And so I'm going to come in here, and I'm just going to put a little dab. Just let this work slowly. Don't get in here and just be in a hurry to push it in here, because you'll put 10mm of glue on. You go to put your eye on, and you're going to stick to the damn thing. So come in here, and so I put one, I just make sure that it's pretty close to 6mm, just smaller than this eye. And I come in here and I set this eye dead center right over top of in the middle of both colors, the white and the green, and make sure that my splash of lavender is in the middle. Then you hold it for just a second. You don't have to hold it, just long enough to let it start to kick. Then move to this side. Same thing, clean everything up. I'm trying to keep that where you can see it. So now I'm going to take this, and this time I'm going to do the same thing, holding that, and I'm going to come in here and I'm going to put a little drop on, just like I used to in some of my old videos. Hell, you can go back 15, 20 years, and I'm doing this with doll eyes on the original TNAs, and it's the same thing. Just we're letting it sink through right now. I would like this to go all the way through to the backside to the other eye, and on the doll eyes, you could literally squeeze them and feel them heat, and it would melt the plastics to each other. Couldn't get one to fall out. So I'm going to put two, I end up putting two, I'm drops is what I'm doing. I keep kind of touching this, trying it, because I don't want a big drop, because if you just go for a big drop, it ends up spreading out and you get yourself glued to your fly. So now I go right over top, making sure that lavender's covered, making sure I'm in the center, eyes are equally on each side, and then you squeeze them. Kind of feel them a little bit. Make sure you don't have any glue on your hand. Make sure you're not, if you put 10mm of glue on here, you're about to be stuck to this fly, and you're going to be standing here just like this. But if you hold it, and the other thing is, do not get over top of this. Don't sit like this when you're using zaps, because when it kicks, man, it'll give you a nose hit. You'll end up walking around goofy like Johnny. Why do you always pick on Johnny? Because it's fun. All right, so you hold that thing right there. I just felt it. Boom! It just kicked. It's hot. That thing is there. And it just stuck to my finger a little bit. Boom. I was sticking a little bit. If you do it a lot, you'll leave a fingerprint on your fly. Okay, are we set? Good. I'm not wild about this set on this backside. It didn't kick quite how I wanted it to. If you want to, you can go in there and you can pop these things, and you'll find the different eyes, the adhesives that they use on different eyes. I wasn't wild about that backside set. It seems, if you don't like it, pop it off there and do it again. I don't prefer to do that because I think they set better if you don't. All right, so now this is the fun part. You're simply going to come in here and you're going to cut straight up, right up the front of this fly. Then we're going to come in here and you're just going to layer it back. Layer it back. Think about what the shape of the fly is that you're going to fish. If it's you're in my way. Sorry about that, but you got to get over this thing. That light's in my way. So we're just going to shape this. When you start shaping it, remember, don't take it exactly to my old producer, Gene Herring from Fly Fish TV. Always give me crap about saying exact. There's no such word as exact, Kelly. Yeah, I know. So don't make this exactly the shape. Make it slightly bigger. When it gets wet, it's going to just get eighth of an inch or so. So now just come in here, have fun with it, trim it up, just make it the shape you want it. I like to leave this hair going back into, as you can see, it's coming back into the feather. And then on the bottom, I'm just going to clean him up just a little bit and let it blend right into the belly. And I've got that So it's kind of, now when this gets wet, it's going to shrink down just a little bit. So just kind of layer it back into the other body material. And when you do that, when you layer these whites into that and the greens into it, you'll start getting two-tone effects when it's wet. You can't really see it when it's dry, but when you see the fly wet, you'll see this pearl will come through underneath that body. It'll get a really, really cool effect. All right? One more little pow. Good. So now my feathers are set. You can see I still got that little splash of lavender. Here's that little kicker right there of the ice wing. You got a nice clean feather showing down. You got a nice accent down here. Really cool looking eye. I mean, this thing's got so many things going for it. It's such a blast to tie. If you weren't shooting your mouth off like I do all the time, you could tie this fly in probably 10 minutes. I mean, that's a pretty fast fly when you consider that you've got a 5-inch profile. This thing swims like you can't imagine. I mean, there's nothing to adhere or to impede that tail from doing this, you know, the wing from swimming like crazy. You get a little bit of flash out of that from the inside. You got a great trigger point, a great target for the eye. Boom. This fly's gonna change you. You're gonna love this thing. Don't be afraid to make it a lot of colors. Yellows, I don't care. Make this and you'll love it. Hope that helps you out.